live now to Stephen Charles, a retired judge who served on the Supreme Court of Victoria and Court of Appeal between 1995 and 2006. He's now a board member of the Centre for Public Integrity. Stephen, thanks so much for your time. First of all, what concerns you most about what you've seen out of IBAC over the last couple of days?
Okay, can I just say first that I'm also a member of the board of the Accountability Roundtable. The relevance of that is that both of these are anti-corruption bodies. The Accountability Roundtable is Victorian. The Centre for Public Integrity is a Sydney body. Now, what concerns me most is that branch stacking has the consequence of distorting the members of Parliament. It distorts the pre-selection process. It distorts the policies. It also has impact on the party conferences because the more members you can show in your branch, the more weight is likely to be given to the policies that you put forward. It has to be remembered that most seats are in fact covered by the faction arrangements within the party, so that all really that one gets to know is that there is a fight going on for pre-selection in one seat, but that is usually controlled by the faction process.
So you've given us a good sense of why the public should be concerned about the issue and the practice of branch stacking, but is it illegal?
No, as far as I understand it, it's not. That's one of the matters that we bear in mind in relation to the bodies that we urge the federal parliament to take into account. Corruption is something which goes wider than crime. There are a number of areas where say, for example, a large donation is given to a political party, which is an entirely legal process at the moment. And suppose the party wants to repay that favour with access or some sort of benefit. Now, it'll be very difficult to establish that. And you have to have a definition of corruption which enables that sort of matter to be taken into account.
So in that context, what do you make of what you've seen of the federal government's plan for an anti-corruption commission? It's been criticised as not having sufficient teeth. Would it prevent things like we're seeing emerge out of IBAC?
Well, can I start with this? Half of the body is powerful and with very vigorous teeth. Half of the body deals with law enforcement bodies and their personnel, and that's a very large number of people. That half has great teeth. It can have public hearings. It can make findings of corrupt conduct. Whistleblowers can complain to it. The trouble with the body that's been put forward by the coalition is that the second half is the one that deals with most of the public service and with parliamentarians. Now, that half, there is a narrower definition of corruption which requires reasonable suspicion of a crime. Secondly, whistleblowers are not able to complain directly to the commission. They've got to go to some other body like the let's say the Federal Police or the Border Force or the Ombudsman and say, we've seen such and such, or we have this complaint and we now want you to investigate it. Now, and then if those people find reasonable suspicion of a crime, they can pass it on. So there's no direct whistleblower. Now, next, in this area, there will be no public hearings, absolutely not. And next, when it comes to reports, the reports, insofar as they relate to parliamentarians, may not include any criticism, express or implied or finding about a parliamentarian or a parliamentarian staff. Now, that means that assuming you got any sort of investigation started, you couldn't even include an implied criticism of a parliamentarian, and anyway, it would be entirely in secret.
Yeah, well, it's quite the contrast to what we've seen at ICAC, particularly in recent times, and another looming hearing starting on Monday, which is of great significance, and we'll be providing a lot of focus on that at the time, Stephen Charles. But just finally, can I get you to reflect on the criticisms that have been levelled at ICAC by some, including in the political sphere, who say that it's the Star Chamber argument that's been made against that particular commission?
Well, the first complaint they make is that it cost New South Wales 3 good premiers. Now, that suggestion is nonsense. Nick Greiner was in a situation where it was alleged against him that he was in effect bribing the independent Dr. Metherell to give up his seat in return for a position in the Environmental Protection Authority, which hadn't been advertised and for which there was no interview. Now, when the matter ultimately went before the Court of Appeal, the judgment was that the ICAC commissioner had gone beyond his jurisdiction, but Mr. Greiner then resigned. The Court of Appeal overturned the decision, and Mr. Greiner has gone on to be a leading politician and businessman. His reputation is absolutely untarnished. It's as high as ever. The second one, Mr. O'Farrell, made a mistake in his evidence about whether he'd received a bottle of wine, went home, discovered he'd made the mistake, and had he gone back the next day and said, look, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I apologise, no one would have heard another word about it. He chose to resign. Now, in neither of those cases did ICAC cause the Premier to go. In the case of Gladys Berejiklian, she was a very successful Premier and a very popular one. But the circumstances that is now being suggested relate to her and her relationship with Daryl Maguire. If you translated that into the situation of a male Premier with a strong relationship with a woman who is shown to be a crook, and her matters are being discussed in Cabinet without his relationship to that woman being discussed, everyone would be demanding an investigation. In my view, ICAC is simply doing its job exactly as it's expected to do. Now, that's the first thing. Secondly, there's a lot of bitter complaint about them holding public hearings. Well, when Mr. Greiner set up ICAC in 1988, there was a great deal of corruption in New South Wales, and ICAC has achieved a great deal, particularly in the municipal area and in relation to politicians receiving donations from developers, which was made illegal. Now, time and again, Liberal premiers have thanked and congratulated ICAC for its work. It's just sad at this point that a good Premier has chosen to resign because of these hearings.
Stephen Charles, a retired judge, formerly of the Supreme Court of Victoria and Court of Appeal, thank you for your insights. Very much appreciated.